The Bulldogs have picked him up. He's 19 years old and he's on a reported about $430,000 a year on a 3-year deal. But allegations yesterday that he was sent home from training by Dean Pay, and this has happened on a couple of occasions in the last couple of weeks. What's going on with him?
Oh, look, I don't know the kid, Em. What they were saying is he ballooned out, they said, during the off-season about 125 kilos, and Ivan ended up putting the line through him.
That's huge.
Huge amount of money. Huge amount of money, too, for a kid that age. And, look, apparently what had happened to the Bulldogs was that he was turning up late for training all the time, then not finishing the training session. And Dino's trying to implement that old Bulldogs culture. So he's just gone, go home.
Yeah.
And Moses, you need to assess whether you want to be a professional footballer. And this is the thing. This is the thing because it's really hard with young blokes. And I can understand what scouts do a lot of times. They fall in love with physicality, right? When they see a kid who's big and who's dominating, and not enough thought is given to a temperament and attitude. A really good scout senses attitude, both good and bad scouts just look at the physical. Now, I got a list here of 18-year-old kids who, when they were 18, fulfilled their early fame. And they did. These kids were stars when they were young, but they end up, have gone on and continue on their way. Guys like Brad Fittler. When Freddie came through, he was 17 years old and played his first grade game, and he was the kid who was always going to be a star from 15 and fulfilled it because he had the right attitude. Bradley Clyde at the Raiders was the same. Sonny Bill Williams. Everyone, he was the talk. When he was on $5,000 at the Bulldogs, the Melbourne Storm offered him $180 a year, and he stayed. And everyone said this kid's going to be a superstar. Guess what? He's become an absolute international superstar. Benji Marshall. Benji at 17, the way he moved and everything, you just go, mate, there was no doubt he was going to fulfill his potential. Jared Hayne was the same. Now, Jared's had a couple of rough years, but, man, I'll tell you what, when he was a 17-year-old coming through at Parramatta, straight up, Brian Smith didn't play him in first grade. Jason Taylor took over from Brian Smith, put him straight in, and wham, away he went. Yep. And the other two, Greg Inglis. Inglis was one, and Israel Folau was another one. Israel played first grade at 16. Remember watching him at 16 at Melbourne Storm training, and that Cooper Cronk was doing cross kicks, and the 16-year-old kid was jumping over the top of Matt King, half a body length over the top of Kingy, who's 6'2", and Kingy said, "Can someone get me a step ladder?"
Yeah.
But one thing was synonymous with all those blokes: they had winning attitude as well as physicality. They were good athletes, but they had a winning attitude and they had the right attitude. There are other players who are late bloomers, who at 18 years of age, no one really looked at and thought anything of. Billy Slater. Mate, too small, not going to make it, mate. Jonathan Thurston, nah, not big enough, we don't want you. Danny Badeiras, mate, really, he was at the Newcastle Knights. We didn't know if he was a centre, a halfback, a 5'8", a fullback. They trialled him everywhere. Through necessity, we threw him in at hooker and wham, away he went. Cooper Cronk was another one. Cooper Cronk, never played really first grade till he was 22. They didn't know what he was. And Jordan Rapana. Jordan Rapana was at the Brumbies, and they just sort of let him go, and mate turns up at the Raiders, and away he goes. Because, in my eyes, they put too much emphasis on the physicality, and there'd be people listening to this, parents listening to this, and there'd be kids listening to this, who some smart ass along the way has told their kid, "You're not going to make it because you're not big enough," right? I'll tell you, the physical is about 10 to 15% of the package. Mate, it's what's upstairs and your attitude that gets you there. Now, I just want to say about Moses. Moses Sule, he needs to forget about how dominant he was as a kid, because it's never going to be that easy again. And this is the trap that some kids get into. He needs to train as though he has no talent, Emma. As if he's relying on fitness and work ethic and not just relying on God-given ability. If he can do that, if he can discover that work ethic, then, mate, he'll be a star. There's no doubt about it. But that, at the moment, he's at the crossroads.
There's almost an argument that God-given talent is a wonderful thing to be able to just naturally perform, but the really great players, not only in the NRL but in a lot of other sports as well, who have had to fight for it and had to work harder than everyone else because they don't have the natural ability, go on sometimes, a lot of the times, to bigger and greater things.
Let's not forget, Freddie Fittler had different points in his career. He talks about a time that he came back from a kangaroo tour and was 15 kilos overweight. And he was late to training one day and he rode his motorbike in and all the boys, first graders, were cheering it. And Phil Gould grabbed him, took him into his office and gave him such a serve, such a spray that Freddie broke down and cried. He said, "Get on your friggin' motorbike, piss off, and I don't want to see you back. I don't want to see you back here till you have the proper attitude and get rid of the motorbike." And Freddie went away and sat there and went. He was about 19 years of age and went, "Righto, what do I want to do with my career? Do I want to be an unfulfilled talent, or do I want to be something?" Turned up at training 2 days later, got on with his career. And that's what Dean Pay's doing to Moses Sule.
But what about Moses? Poor kid in one way is that he's already got $1 million odd bucks thing. So at some stage it goes, well, you know what? I've already got $1 million contract. You know what I mean? It's hard to get yourself all fired up if you're not fighting for that. He's already got it.
You're right. When the Super League war hit, I'll tell you a story. I was playing first grade when I first played first grade. I was on $15,000 a year playing first grade football. And got picked for Origin once. I remember sitting next to Ricky Stewart, and him and Glenn Lazarus were talking about contracts. I thought I was flying at 15,000. They were talking about 400, 500,000. And I was going, oh my God, I think I'm being shortchanged here. My brother Andrew, his first contract in first grade, he was on $9,000. Oh. Then all of a sudden we sat down and Super League hit, and we started to really establish ourselves as a combination in first grade. And as we signed this decent contract, Phil Gould said to us, "Are you ready for this? Are you ready? Do you have the mental toughness to play as hard and play as tough and be as disciplined and train as hard when you're earning good money?" And it's a test.
Yeah.
It's a real test of your desire and your hunger. And at the moment,
he's failing that at the moment.
He's failing that at the moment. I hate, what other industry could you be into? When you get, I say that to young blokes all the time. I said, you don't know how lucky you are, right? I said, to earn sort of money you potentially are earning. So the thing about it is you get graded. Too often young blokes get graded in under 20s and they first walk into a place and they go, oh, I'm just going to naturally make it. Well, it's all right to get accepted into Harvard, but you still got to study and you still got to work hard if you want to be a doctor. Right? And that's the thing. Just because you're getting a grade doesn't mean you're going to make it, mate. Once you get in there, the competition for spots is so hard that if you don't want it, they'll just shift you on.